So my name is Wes. I get to be a father of two amazing little girls. I get to be married to an amazing woman who every step in my life has always called me to greater and given me chances when I didn't deserve them. To me, I think that art is a really deep expression of all of the God things that He put in me. And I think that whether it's photography, which is the root love of my passion, or it's creating live experiences for a Sunday morning, I think that for me, when I'm in the act of creating art, from music videos or album covers, or like I said, live experiences for church services, I think that I very easily shift gears from a place of self-serving to Christ-seeking, and I really believe that it's my time of worship. It's where I feel most in tune with and most in the flow of all the things that He's called me to. I know that as I grow, I get to experience and see new ways that the gifts that He's given me work. And in this season especially, I have come to realize very clearly that the spiritual gifts that He's given me are for the body. And every time I use those and pull on those, everything from exhortation to craftsmanship and pastor and shepherding, I just see all new things happen in my life. I see new favors and I see new wonders that He performs. I see new graces and new mercies, and everything from the way that work happens to the way that I get to experience life with my children. His graces are just new every day, and it's amazing. And through art, I just feel this deep, unexplainable connection with the Spirit. So growing up for myself, a little bit about my story was I grew up not an artist. I grew up a hunter. I grew up a football player. A lot of my journey has been fundamentally fueled by art. I remember at age 13 really starting photography and being deeply scared to share with anybody, because whereas I loved photographing flowers and pretty things, I also was a football captain, so I felt like there was a separation there. And even if there really wasn't, the power of fear really held me back. And through photography and through expression of art, I really began to understand why He made me the way that He made me. And so I see into my high school years where I very visibly published my work online and in different local art shops and stuff like that. And I found a lot of support that I just never anticipated I would have, and God began to do something inside of me where I now know was where He began to build the foundational stones of where He would call me and use me in my ministry. And starting at age 18, I started creating music videos. And in creating music videos, I found myself becoming very far from Jesus. I found myself creating art in new ways and new shapes and new forms and collaborating with new people, but in every step of the way, my goals weren't to serve Him, because I didn't know what that meant. In football, I wanted to be a professional football player so people knew who Wesley Rose was. Well, in art, I just took that and I shifted it, and I wanted people to see the films and photographs that I created so that they would still know who Wesley Rose was. And I have to say that now, in my 6th year of ministry, I got to start when I was 18 or almost 19 years old. The thing that has transformed my outlook on all that God's done in my life is it probably wasn't until about a year and a half or 2 years ago where God met me. I was on a trip in Israel, and He helped me realize that on that trip that I was extremely selfish. I was extremely arrogant. I was prideful. And everything that I would make, no matter how spiritual it was or how foundational it was for someone else's walk, I just wanted them to say how good of a job that I did. It was the time where there was a lot of creatives in the church that were making big waves, and a lot of things were changing. And in that time, I heard the names of so many people, and I just wanted to be them. And in me wanting to be them, what I sacrificed was seeing the people in front of me that God was calling me to pastor, to shepherd, to lead, to love, to make them heroes. I just wanted to be the hero. And on that trip to Israel, I remember filming in the Judean wilderness at a place called Genesis Land. It was so cool. I remember being in an argument with my leader and the person who I would end up needing to lead. I remember being in an argument, and the whole purpose of the argument was I just didn't like someone else's preferences. And I wasn't willing to give up my own to see the win in someone else's life. And the Lord so magically took me from Israel in a direct flight to India for a missions trip, and it was there where God really opened my eyes and told me that it's not about me. And in my walk in art, the whole time, it had always been about me. From age 13 to at this point, I think I was about 23 or 24, everything was mine. Every win was mine, every celebration was mine, everything I would point back to me. And in that trip, I so vividly remember God just breaking down walls of pride in my life and just saying, can't you see that the glory is for me? For me, in everything that I get to do and love to do is really telling stories, whether it's a still image and it's a visual story, or it's a motion picture, or even creating an environment. It's a story. And in that, the tattoos that I have are really representative of where I've been at different places in my life. So for example, on my left arm, starting on my shoulder cap, I have a film reel that unravels and wraps my arm and ends down here as 120 millimeter film. And the purpose of that was showing a process of moving from the still image creation into motion. So my career started in photography and it moved towards cinema. And there's other things on my arm as well, like a deer skull. There's a football helmet. There's gears, there's a clock hand, and collectively at age 18, I have no idea how I thought of this. Sometimes I think it's dumb, but it's me. I really wanted to have a tattoo that was ever evolving. So at age 18, when I made the decision to get my whole left arm sleeved in like a summer, what I did was I worked with an artist who I trusted, because when you are an artist, you really want to work with someone that you can trust. And my left arm is intended to be a story of how my life unfolds. So as it's represented from still film at the bottom to motion film at the top, it unravels and it goes from a full 120 millimeter negative down to 16 millimeter reel. And in there, every single frame is representative of a decade of my life and what meant the most in forming me in those years. And underneath of the film reels, you'll see gears, and the gears are representing what drives me, like the driving motions. And then on top of all of it, you'll see a clock hand. And collectively, the tattoo is supposed to represent what drives me through time. So in ages 0 to 10, my fondest memories were hunting with my father and doing outdoor things and really a lot of bonding things. And it's actually an image that I photographed on a 120 millimeter camera that was transposed and drawn on my arm. And then on the underside, I have a football helmet, and that was my high school football helmet, because football was an 8-year journey for me. It was something that I loved with all my heart, and I thought that it was big enough a part of me in identifying teamwork and you know, the grit and all those different things that I want to identify on my body. But on my inner forearm, I think the most important thing, like to me and even to this day, is it's a full-scale image of the camera that really started my passion for all that I get to do today. It's a 1952 Mamiya C2, and it is, to date, my favorite camera. I still have it. I shoot with it from time to time when I get the chance. And on my right hand, I have a rose. And this rose, you know, ironically, my last name is Rose, so I got a rose on my hand. It wasn't really the driving force of getting that. I've just always loved the classic imagery of a rose. And in that, you know, I got it, I actually got to get it tattooed at our church, which was really neat. We had a men's night, and in the foyer for like an art element for an art install, I got to sit in there, and the artist actually literally did my hand tattoo live in the environment. It was really cool. It was a lot of things that created memories for other people, and for me, it's my favorite tattoo that I have. But my most meaningful tattoo that I have is actually right here on my ring finger. This is actually my wedding ring, and it was the day after we got married. My wife and I, we went and got ring tattoos, and it's just a glyph. It's a glyph of two half circles together. It's a glyph that represents harmony. So it's just two halves becoming one. The way I like to think about it is the two halves become one to create the whole, which is bound by the circle, which is Christ. I think one of the most valuable lessons that I ever learned was that there's never a time where God's done with you. I've felt many a times in my life that a season's ending or a position's ending or something's changing, and I've felt a loss of value. And in those moments, the counsel that I sought spoke just some really amazing words over me. And one of them that was huge, which is whether you're looking for what's next or you're in the middle of something that you're wrestling through, is There's never a moment in your life where you have to fight for the acceptance of somebody else. You were accepted the day that Christ made you. You were accepted the day that you welcomed him as your Savior. There is so much that is still left inside of you that you have to give. You're never too old to start a new venture. You're never too young to rise to a level of leadership. As long as there's air in your lungs, God's not done with you. And I think what's hard sometimes for us as artists is we get so wrapped up in our rainy days. We beat ourselves up from a bad review from a client. We find ourselves buried under the self-doubt. I mean, let's be real. We're, definitely our worst critics, and sometimes we, will sabotage ourselves just to feel something. And if I could encourage anybody, there's always more for you. Your ideas aren't dumb. They might need to be weighed out a little bit. You might need to have a friend that tells you when they are dumb, but your ideas aren't dumb. If you want to start that business, God has provided everything inside of you for that to happen. If you want to move across the world, God has put everything inside of you for that to happen. If you have fears of your finances, how the Lord will provide everything that you need, the Lord has placed inside of you. Now, I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not, but I just want you to know that you never have to live from a place where you're seeking acceptance from others, because you are good, you are wanted, you are worthy, you are so, so valuable, and don't lose sight of that.